Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm out on another walk. I like to, where possible, react to some of the comments I get and the suggestions that I'm given. And one of the recent suggestions was to do a walk and a talk about hair loss. And that tickled me for obvious reasons, because I don't have a lot of hair at all myself. And so maybe I'm a bit qualified to talk about that. Now, just to let you know, I'm in Worthing, close to where I live, and I'm down in one of these old Twittons, which are lovely. I love walking up these old back alleys of the houses. It's a bit of a miserable day today, so I'm filming on the GoPro. There's a bit of wet, damp rain in the air, moisture. It's windy and cold and grey, so I'm sorry if the quality of the picture is a bit poor. But as I walk along these alleyways, and then I'll probably just go around some of the side streets, we'll talk about what it's like to lose your hair and be bald. It's a sort of subject, I suppose, that people who are in the process of losing their hair start to worry about, and those who have lost it are concerned whether they can ever get it back. And there are lots of quack remedies out there for those people who are concerned, and I'm not really worried about the quack remedies. I've never actually personally tried to get remedies to sort out my hair. I started losing my hair when I was about 17, 18, something like that, and it went right from the very top here. I had profuse amount of black or dark brown hair from the sides, but it was the top that thinned. My dad had the same problem. I think it's male pattern baldness. I think it's fairly prevalent. I have no idea what causes it. And as a kid or a young man, I was somewhat worried about it, I suppose, as everybody does get worried about these things. But after a while, I just accepted it, really. It wasn't so much a problem, and I just kept my hair short, and that seemed to be fine. By keeping it short, it didn't overly worry me. Right, we're coming out of the first Twitton, and we're going to go up the next continuation of it here, just in front of the Sydney Water Centre, which is that building there that I think used to be a school, and now it's a community centre. So we'll go up this one here. I like these because they're fairly deserted, so it's quite handy for filming in. And I have actually shot various bits and pieces here over the years up these little alleys. I just think they're lovely. There's something about them. I'm not sure, perhaps wandering at night time, of course, that's a somewhat different thing. Now, I met a chap fairly recently, actually, and I looked at his hair and I thought, that's very strange. When I got closer to him, he had tattooed spots all over his hair. He'd lost his hair, and he tattooed these spots over his hair because he wanted to give the impression that he had a crew cut, or a very, very, like a number one on the old razors. And I did think that was a bit extreme, personally. As I say, it's never bothered me. And in fact, I used to do in my 30s, I used to do lots of extra work. Now, if you're following the series that I do called My Story, I'll be getting on to talking about some of the extra work that I used to do. And by extra work, I mean walk-on parts in television and that sort of thing. And because I had this short hair, even though I was slightly bald, I'd always get cast as soldiers or policemen. And I'll tell you about various times I was in well-known English television series in that My Story series later on, when I get to that point. But yeah, I was always typecast as your sort of background policeman or a soldier or anything sort of military-wise, even a fireman, I think, in London's Burning once. And then it came to a point where I wanted to make a children's television programme off my own bat, and again that story will be covered more fully. And it was about two aliens who had bald heads, and that was the point where I thought, now it's make or break time. I'm going to shave all this hair off and just remain bald, and I did. So coming out of this last part of the Twitten here, and I think I'm going to avoid the town because it's noisy, and we'll just head back in a circle. It's a very simple walk today. I've got to stay in because I've got deliveries coming, and also I've got to do my accounts. Yep, even us YouTubers have to do accounts and submit them for tax purposes, of course. This is going to be an interesting year, I think, for many people who are going to be doing their accounts, especially the self-employed people, because as you know, 2020 was a dreadful year, and we've just now gone into the, what is this, the third national lockdown, and yeah, we'll see what happens with that one, shall we? I'm trying to stay as positive as I can in 2021. That's my message, my New Year's resolution. So we're walking back now, parallel to where the Twitten was, down one of the streets here, which are all Victorian streets, probably built around the same sort of time, about 1880, I would imagine, something like that. Very nice houses, and probably very nice inside. There was a huge spell of house building, certainly here in Worthing, but probably across the whole country, from the 1840s onwards, during the Victorian period, once the railways were able to transport bricks and you didn't have to have your building materials locally. You could bring brick from wherever the brickyards were, and of course people did do that on a large scale, and a lot of properties were built very speculatively in batches. And many of them here look up for sale. So I was just waiting for the UPS driver to go past because it was very loud. I've taken my baldness to my advantage. I've embraced it. As you know, the Bald Explorer, and prior to that, my children's television series, which went on in 1996 and 1997 on children's ITV, Snug and Cozy it was called, about these two bald-headed spacemen. And when we made the pilot, as I say, I shaved my head off. My partner in that, Nigel, he was still an ambulance driver, I think, and he hadn't yet wanted to take the full risk of shaving his hair off, and even though he was thinning, he wore a skull cap in that. But when we got the TV series, he went for the plunge, and that made it so much easier. But in our little pilot, you can still see the skull cap on his head, which was a bit of a shame, but you know, it was the only way we could do it. One of the things that people say, and I've addressed this fairly recently, is that you lose a lot of heat out of your head, and that I think has been proved as a bit of a myth in actual fact. Although, of course, you do get a cold head and you get cold ears and you feel the wind rushing around your neck and things like that. So wearing a hat is probably very advisable, although I tend not to wear a hat when I'm on camera because my moniker is the Bald Explorer. But on occasions when it's pouring with rain or it's very, very windy and my ears are exceptionally cold, then of course I will put on a hat. But people seem to get very worried, and I never quite understand why that is. I think we'll just wander through the park a little bit before I finish up. This is Homefield Park, that was a lot bigger but got gobbled up by the hospital some 20-30 years ago. I think when I moved to Worthing, there was the old hospital, the old Victorian infirmary was still there. But when my eldest 30 years ago was born, Stanley, there was no maternity ward, so we had to go to St Richard's in Chichester for him. And the Parkers used to have a very beautiful Victorian pond, but that's all gone now. I'm not sure this was such a great idea because it's actually very windy. I think I'm going to adhere to this side of the park. The wind is a little blowy, and the one thing I hate as a filmmaker is getting wind on the microphone. You probably heard me moan about that before, although I take precautions, if that's not a euphemism. That is the tennis courts, and there's actually people in them playing tennis, which is nice to see a family out there even in the cold. That's great. And on the other side, a couple of kids on their bikes enjoying the bike park or skate park, which is good to see. It's actually brightening up now. Anyway, so I don't worry about being bald. It hasn't ever really concerned me too much. I think the shock of losing my hair, but because my dad had lost his hair, I got used to it. I heard silly things like wearing a hat had caused it to go off. I used to wear a flat cap a lot in my younger years, and it was like the wear and tear, but I don't think any of that is true. I would say if people are worried about hair loss, embrace it. It's the people who comb over and it looks ridiculous. Of course, there are some people that being bald does not suit, and I get that. And I just think I'm quite lucky that my facial features are sort of not grim. I'm not the most handsome person in the world, especially with my wonky eye, but what I mean is there was a period in the 70s, I think, when baldness was associated with thuggery and the National Front and skinheads and all of that, but I don't think that's the case now. People actually have often said to me that they find bald men quite sexy, so I can't say that's really been of huge benefit to me. But there you go. Anyway, that was my cogitation subject for this episode. I should get back now and go and sort out my accounts. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, don't forget to follow, like and subscribe, and give me a thumbs up. It's been lovely to have a little chat with you, and I'll catch up with you next time. Take care. Bye bye for now. Bye bye.